See, the taller a tree gets, the deeper its roots have to be. And that's what we have to understand as individuals, developing ourselves, and as a community, as an ummah, is that in order for us to reach the sky, in order for us to grow, in order for us to become, reach lofty goals, we have to have solid roots. We have to get deeper in order to get higher, in order to get larger. And when you look at the mission of the Prophet ﷺ, you find something very interesting about the mission of the Prophet ﷺ. There is a very, very important hadith in which Aisha radiallahu anha says about the Prophet ﷺ, or about his mission. And she says that if the first verses to be revealed were telling the people to leave alcohol, I heard some of the statistics at the beginning which were very, very painful to listen to. But she said that if the first verses to be revealed were to not drink alcohol or to give up fornication, two of the things that were mentioned in the statistics, that the people would have said, we will never give up alcohol and we will never give up fornication. However, the first verses to be revealed were not give up alcohol and give up fornication. She explains to us that the first verses, and when we look at how the mission of the Prophet ﷺ was completed, the first verses were creating that bond with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were creating a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deeply rooted in love and fear. Now how do these fit together? What we have to understand is that the mistake that many of us have made, and I think a lot of the mistake that we've made as an education, and in Islamic education, is that we come with the rules first. So in other words, Aisha radiallahu anha is telling us that if the first verses to be revealed were do not commit fornication or leave alcohol, people would have said we'll never leave that. But the first verses created a sense of love, attachment, and accountability. The first verses that were revealed trained these people's hearts, and then they went on to become some of the best human beings to walk the earth. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came and trained their hearts first before He came and told them the rules. Unfortunately, what has happened and what I've observed is that a lot of us, we grow up seeing Islam like a list of haram and halal, right? It's a list of do's and don'ts. And sometimes we grow up with a concept of Allah which is absolutely false and absolutely imbalanced. It's a concept of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that goes like this. You better not mess up, right? You better not make any small mistake or slip, because if and when you do, Allah will take you and put you in hell. It's this concept of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wrath without being balanced with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. And it's a very dangerous thing to do, to teach our children about Allah in that way. That's not how Allah speaks about Himself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, we're taught that Allah's mercy prevails over His wrath. But the way that we grow up learning about Allah, it's almost like we're learning about a really scary police officer, right? Like, you know what? If you grow up and your family is always telling, if you're always telling a child, you know what, you better be careful, because if you make one mistake, the police is gonna come, take you and put you in jail. You better be careful, better watch yourself, because the police is, you know what I mean? How is this person gonna feel about the police as they grow up? And moreover, what type of relationship is this person gonna wanna have with the police? Really, it's gonna be a relationship of avoidance. And a lot of young people grow up, and that's the relationship they have with religion in general, and Islam in particular. It's this relationship of, you know what, everything's haram, and it's this deep-seated fear, this deep-seated feeling of no matter what I do, I'm always gonna mess up and it will never be good enough. So let me just stay away from that completely. And a lot of that is our fault, and that's because of the way we use religion. Unfortunately, what I've seen is that we use religion to control our children, or we think to control our children, right? Haram, we have children growing up, they don't even, they can't say their name, but the only thing that they learn is the word haram, right? Haram is this, it's the first thing we teach. But Aisha radhiyallahu anha is telling us the opposite. She's saying that that's not the way the Prophet ﷺ taught. He didn't come with the rules. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't come with the rules first. What was the methodology of the Prophet ﷺ? In a very important hadith that begins by talking about rules, right? How many of you know of this hadith? You probably all learned it growing up. That what is lawful is clear and what is unlawful is clear. Everyone? And between them are the doubtful matters, right? And we're told to stay away from the doubtful matters to protect us from falling into the haram or the unlawful. Now, what's interesting about this hadith is that much of the discussion of this hadith ends there. At least that's what I thought for like a long time, right? But my mind was blown when I realized that the hadith doesn't end there. That discussion of the Prophet ﷺ, it doesn't end at rules. It doesn't end at haram, halal, and mutashabihat, right? The lawful and the unlawful and the disagreed about, or rather those things that we don't know exactly about, the doubtful matters. It doesn't end there. The Prophet ﷺ goes on in this discussion to say, "Inna fil jasadi mudgha." Indeed, in the body there's a lump of flesh. And this is where he gives us the secret, right? He gives us that tool, that key. And he says, "Inna fil jasadi mudgha, idha salahat salaha al jasadu kullu." That indeed in the body there's a lump of flesh. If it's set right, then the entire body is set right. وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّ. And if it's corrupted, the entire body is corrupted. أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبِ. Indeed, it's the heart. The discussion here has to be around how are we building the foundation? How are we building people's hearts? And how are we connecting people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at a root level? This type of institution is so essential, because it teaches people how to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at a foundational level, how to build the heart. The Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, in his very beautiful extended dua, وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ, he says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do not disgrace me on the day when everyone is brought back. يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم. On the day when nothing is going to benefit anyone of wealth or children. So in other words, power isn't going to benefit you. All the power you had in this world, all the wealth you had in this world won't benefit you. إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم. Except for the one who returns back to Allah with a heart that's sound, with a heart that's healthy. It goes back to the heart, because the heart is the master of the body. The heart is where you connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the Prophet ﷺ is saying, if you get the heart, then you've got the whole body. And what does that mean? It means that actions follow from that. I mentioned in the previous hadith that the hadith begins by talking essentially about fiqh, right? That what's lawful is clear, what's unlawful is clear, and between them are doubtful matters. This is a discussion about rules, right? This is a discussion about haram and halal. But look at how the Prophet ﷺ links it to the heart. He says that if you want, for us to be able to follow the haram, the rules about haram and halal, for us to be able to stay away from the haram, and for us to be able to stay upon the obligatory action, we have to train our hearts. And that's how we will be able to do that.